sit there, come in the circle.
In the background.
It's good to say.
I was just going to use the
Suspicious
table
yellow liquid.
lean on it.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey. So welcome to the meeting, guys. So tonight's special meeting, we've got very awesome guests with us. We've got Fran Wilde here, who is a very long political career. She's probably better to introduce herself than me to introduce her. So, Fran, would you like to explain what you're doing?
Thank you, Tom. And this is my colleague Prue Lamison. Some of you might know her. Thank you for inviting us here today. We really wanted to come and talk to youth leaders about this big issue of local government. So just a couple of seconds on each of us. I'm chair of the Greater Wellington Regional Council, which is the whole region from Wairarapa down to Wellington City and then up through Porirua and Kapiti. And if you want to, we can describe what the Regional Council does. My background has been in both politics and the community sector and the private sector, so I've been really lucky. I've done a lot of things. I was an MP, and I think what you're talking about is gay law reform, which I did, and Tom was involved in the marriage equality bill recently, and I did gay law decriminalisation when I was in Parliament. I did that, and a few other issues I've done too. But I've had an interesting life and ended up in the region I love most, Wellington, stayed here doing all the stuff for Wellington. So we've now got this big debate on our hands, and we wanted to talk to you guys because this is about the future, and you're the future. So Prue, do you want to just introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'll just introduce myself. I'm also on the Regional Council, and I'm one of 3 representatives from Lower Hutt. So it's me, Peter Glenshaw and Sandra Green. I've lived my whole life in Lower Hutt, except for 8 years when I went to Palmerston North, so it wasn't very far.
She saw the light.
I was going to say, I saw the error of my ways, and I came back. Like Fran, I haven't had quite such an illustrious career as Fran, but I have been involved in politics for a long time, local community, and worked in the construction industry, actually, in Wellington, managing a company and we fitted out the inside of commercial buildings. So I've had a pretty varied. I started off actually many years ago as a school deputy. So it just goes to show you can start off with one career and you can end up somewhere totally different. I've had huge community involvement all the way through. I was pretty bolshy at school, I suppose, and always seemed to be the one who was involved with any changes that were made. Not that it was quite the same as for you guys now. And then, when I had children, I was involved with kindergarten and camps and swimming clubs and all those sort of things. Moved on into secondary school, was the chairman of a board of governors, and then when the new reforms came in, I was chairman of the board of trustees. I was on the council of Petone Borough and went through the huge amalgamation session in 1989, fought like a tiger to stop Petone being amalgamated with the Hutt. Failed. Well, I didn't fail, but they did amalgamate. Was run by the Dom Post 10 years after that occurred, and said, "What do you think now?" And I said, "I'm the first one to put up my hand and say it was the best thing that ever happened to Petone." Petone was going backwards fast, and you only have to look at it now. And that has actually happened since the amalgamation in 1989. Had a bit of a break from politics, and came back, and I have been on the Regional Council for six years. And it's fantastic place to be involved with. There are some amazing issues that we deal with, and of course there is the major issue that we're dealing with now. So that's me. And I've got a cold, so I don't usually talk like this.
So do you want us to just outline the issue? Would that be helpful?
Yeah,
the amalgamation issue?
I think that would be good.
Okay. Well, a bit of history. About every 20 years or so in New Zealand, something happens to local government. There's a bit of change in it. And generally over the last couple of changes, it's been bringing together units. So we've had hundreds and hundreds of borough councils, and I remember Prue's the time she was talking about, and we had boroughs all over Wellington and Hutt and all over our region. You know, there were boroughs. There was Aotea Wainui, Eastbourne, Petone. They were all completely separate entities. So they had their own mayors, they had their own council, everything. And then, and that was probably a hangover from, you know, when they were first set up, when they were discrete communities. And there was people living here and there was people over there. So my great-grandparents lived in Petone, for example, and I imagine the Petone borough was set up when they were here. But they're gone a long time ago, and in between all there's been a lot of housing built in it. So they joined up. So the last lot of reform for local government was 1989, and so this has been, you know, taken a wee bit longer, but now there's a lot of movement going on around the country, and so Auckland is the big one that you would have heard talked about, where they didn't have a choice. Basically, the government said, we want you to amalgamate. They had 6 or 7 councils, we've got 9, they've got 1.5 million people, we've got 500,000 people. This is our region. So we've been talking about how to do things better and deliver better for the residents on our councils for a long time now, and we had a whole lot of work done on shared services. Could we do better by working together and delivering things together? So, you know, we would put, and Lower and Upper Hutt do a lot of this now. They have what's called shared services. So they jointly contract the rubbish collection, or they jointly get somebody to do something for them. We said, why don't we do that on a regional basis? Everybody, all the mayors and the CEOs said, yeah, great idea. So we had a big work schedule, 18 work streams, and we worked away on this for a year or so and didn't get anywhere. We got one thing done, that was civil defence and emergency management. So even the most obvious things that weren't really very hard, we couldn't do. And at that stage, some of us said, hey, look, it's not going to work because there's a lot of people with jobs at stake here, and there is, you know, everybody has. And besides which, under the law, a local council is absolutely obliged to only consider what goes on within their boundaries. So it's hard for them to make a bigger regional decision. So we said, look, maybe we need to look at amalgamation. So the Mayoral Forum, which is all the mayors in the region, and me as the chair of the council, regional council, got PricewaterhouseCoopers, you might have heard of them, to do a consultancy firm to do some work on it. They came out with some options, none of which was the status quo. They said you have to change, and they kind of said actually amalgamation's the best thing, although they were asked not to recommend that, but they kind of did. And then the Mayoral Forum said, no, we don't want to do this, so they said, let's just talk more about shared services. And at that stage, some of us said, no, sorry, we've got to get serious about this because Wellington is not performing well. Our economy's not doing well compared with the rest of the country. We're losing jobs. We've got a future for, 10 years' time. The people that are kids now will be in the workforce. 20 years' time, 30 years' time, what's going to happen to us? So we started talking about amalgamation. We put out a paper, we drafted a paper and sent it around, basically emailed it to people and said, what do you think about this? Didn't go down very well with a number of the councils.
Fran, can I just go back a step?
Yeah, sure.
You said before that the local councils are mandated to just look after, make decisions for their particular territorial area. I think the regional council are mandated to look after the whole region.
True.
So that's why we made the decision that, because we were concerned about what was happening to the whole region, we made the decision. Sorry,
that's important.
Kind of really needed to be.
No. So we then said, let's get some independent people to look at this, and we said to the other councils, why don't you come in with us? We'll set up an independent panel. You can choose who's on it. Or we can all draft the terms of reference together. Except for Porirua Council, they all said no, they weren't interested. So Porirua and the Wellington Regional Council worked together, and we engaged Jeff Palmer, might have heard of him, who did this big report on the region. He used to be the Prime Minister, he was a law lecturer, very learned gentleman, Sir Geoffrey Partners. Anyway, we had the independent panel, they did the report, big thick one, got out, okay, we said that's interesting, that's great. At the same time as this panel report was published, the government changed the law, and they said, if you're going to look at amalgamation, here are the rules. So we now have a set of rules about what you can do. Then we said, what are we going to do with the panel report? Does anybody else want to come in with us and look at it? And then at that stage, Kapiti District Council came in and Wellington City came in. So we've been running some joint work on how an amalgamated council in the region would work. Both Hutt and Lower Hutt decided not to, and so did the Wairarapa councils. Since then, Wairarapa Council decided they want to break away from the region, go it alone, so we're not actually talking about them tonight. But Hutt is now going out for consultation, as you know, on options, one of which would be joining with Upper Hutt. So, we're at the stage, just to tell you how the decision is made before we get into the substance of this, we're at there is an organisation called the Local Government Commission, which is set up by law. It is totally independent. The government doesn't tell it what to do. It has statutory independence. They make the decision. So any changes to local government structure go to them and they decide. So what happens is if somebody puts in an application to them and they look at it and say yep or no or maybe or something else, and they then say to the people of the affected areas, this is what we're thinking about, what do you reckon? They consult, they get feedback, and then they come out with a final proposal, and then that's probably subject to a referendum. I say probably because it has to be triggered off by a poll of voters, but we think that will happen, so we all say we'll have a referendum. So in about a year's time, maybe towards the end of next year, there's likely to be a referendum on this. So I'm just telling you the process from now on. What are we talking about? Well, we're looking at some, first of all, as I said, this is 10, 20, 30 years in the future. This is not about today, although, quite honestly, even today, we're not doing that well. So we have issues with our economy, where our figures for the regional economy, that's the Wellington region, against the rest of New Zealand are looking very poor. We're actually doing quite badly. And the figures for, if you take Wellington City out of that, we're doing even worse. So the figures for both Lower Hutt and Upper Hutt, and for the other TAs outside of Wellington, are even worse than the regional figures, which are worse than the rest of New Zealand. So we're not doing very well. We're actually losing jobs. So if you saw the paper, the Don Post this morning, there's a call centre coming to Wellington, which is great, a few hundred more jobs. But basically, we've been leaking jobs for some time now. So those of you who are still at school, you will just find it more difficult, or you'll have to move away after you've been to university or whatever you do in tertiary if you can't get a job. We don't want to lose our people. We have got a really interesting issue here with population demographics. And I know this sounds a bit kind of, not really relevant, but I actually want to show you a chart because what's happening, and it's happening all over the Western world, in all of the developed economies, people aren't having many kids. So populations are getting older. So instead of having 5 kids, they're only having 1 or 2 kids, or even less actually. And so there is what they call structural change in the population, and it's actually getting older. The population's not getting older, and the people who you rely on to support a growing elderly population won't be there because the working age population will be smaller. So if you look at this, you don't have to look at all the detail, but this is Lower Hutt demographics. This one here is how it is now. So you can see all these, each of these bars represents 5 years of age group. See at the bottom, there's a whole lot of kids there, and in the working age, there's a nice bulge there, and then it peaks off. This is when people start dying off, when they get older. Okay, that's the oldies there. This is the same graph in this is Hutt City in 20 years' time, and you can see what's happened to it. It's much straighter, and this top is much bigger. So there's a lot more old people there. And there are people generally who will be living on pensions. They'll be on what we call fixed incomes, which means they're not earning and they can't get more money if they want it. And they will be saying to the council, hey council, we don't want you to have a youth club, we want you to have an old person's centre. Truly, that's what they'll be doing. They'll be saying, we don't want sports facilities for young people, we want recreational facilities for older people. And the council will say, gosh, that's pretty important because look how big our older population is now. But hey, who's paying for it? Because instead of having more people in the working age and more young people coming up, the lines are straight, they've straightened out now. So this is called structural ageing. And it's actually a trend that's going to be really hard to reverse in our population because it's happening all over the country. And the one place in our region that's not happening is Wellington City. Why is that? Not because they're having more kids, they're not. In fact, they're having less kids there. It's because young adults are moving into Wellington City. Students move there when they go to varsity, to Vic or to Massey or whatever. Young workers move there. And so their adult working populations will be good. But it will be at the expense of the rest of the region. So this is no kidding, this is true. This is not our graph, this is from a professor at Waikato University who's New Zealand's leading expert on demographics. This is what's going to happen. And in some cases, say in the Wairarapa over the hill, it's even worse. It's almost being reversed. They are going to lose population so fast. So the result of that is we're going to have communities that are kind of not balanced properly, and then you won't have the people to pay the rates and to do all of the things you need. So we're saying, well, hang on a minute, we're actually quite close to Wellington City here, and we're quite close actually to Porirua actually, we're not that far away, and we have 30,000 people a day who go into Wellington City from outside Wellington City to work. So why can't we run this like one? And what would be the result of that? You would have the ability to manage these sorts of trends. You'd have the ability to manage the unemployment trends by making decisions for the whole region, not just each council making its own decisions. So how would that work? Well, there's something called a spatial plan. God, this is sounding technical, isn't it? They have in Auckland, and they've been told to do that by the government since they had their amalgamation there. And they're able to sit down, and they have to, in fact, it's required, sit down with the government, with the private sector and the council and the community all together. And they've worked out these sorts of things for Auckland. What's going to happen in 10, 20, 30 years' time in South Auckland, which is a high area of high social deprivation. It's a poor area. How are we going to manage that? They've said, okay, we'll have what we call a Southern Initiative. And they've got this plotted out, and the whole region is able to cluster around and help South Auckland, which they couldn't do before because it wasn't within their council area. So I'm thinking, for example, here in the Hutt City, Seaview, you know Seaview? Lots of vacant industrial land there. Fabulous, it's our best site in the region for putting in new industry, for attracting industry and redeveloping it. It's got a third of the region's vacant industrial land. Who can do anything about it now? Only Hutt City. So we can't say regionally, we'd like to come in and help Hutt City with Seaview, and we'd like to say, no, Wellington City, you shouldn't be developing farmland up at the top of Granada to turn into an industrial site. We should be developing Seaview in the Hutt for our regional industrial development, not a new one, what we call a greenfield site on a whole lot of farmland, out yonder. It should be done here. We can't do that now because we're not allowed to under the law. It's not our responsibility. It's just Hutt City's and it's no one else's. But if we had a regional spatial plan, we could do that sort of stuff.
So can I just again, if I chip in,
Yep.
What the whole purpose of the regional spatial plan is to stop fragmented development, which is exactly what Fran's just said. So you have, you know, somewhere like Seaview, which is great, it's there are buildings, there are also vacant land, there are great... Yeah, there's infrastructure, yeah, sewerage, water, all those sort of things, plus roads are there, transport is there. If we were one big council, one big unit, we could say, yep, let's develop that and drive that area. While we are fragmented into 9 local bodies,
we're all competing against each other.
So we're competing against each other. So Wellington say, oh, bugger the heart, you know, let's build. We've got a whole lot of land out here. Let's develop that. So then you've got both of them competing for exactly the same market.
All the businesses, they're all targeting the same people to come to their place. And often in the end, these people just go to Auckland anyway because there's not a single voice. So we could give you a lot of other examples of the benefits of scale, but I also want to talk about local decision making. Because apart from when you can't get a job, which is actually very important, most of your life, your interface with local government, with the council, is on very local issues. So how would that be run? Well, we're suggesting a 2-tier approach. So what's been said in this that your council have just put out is not actually quite right in terms of they've actually got option 3 is not what we're talking about. They're putting out this for consultation now. And they've said there are 3 options. And I think they think option 3 is what we're saying, but it's not what we're saying.
What is option 3?
Option 3 is a single super city. It would undertake all local and regional activities. That's not right. Currently undertaken by these councils. It would be the only entity that would set and collect rates and make the majority of decisions for the entire region. So it would not make all the local decisions. I want to talk about that now. I want to talk about the 2-tier option. So what we're suggesting is that to get the best of both worlds, so you have the regional ability to do the planning and actually stop the competition and actually help areas like the Hut, which we can't do now, you would have 2 tiers. So you'd have a regional entity that would have people elected from all over the region. Have you got the book that says how many from Lower Hutt? So 4 people were suggesting one from Lower Hutt. Okay. But then as well as that you would have a local board. It's like a local council, but I remember I said earlier the government passed some legislation last year. They passed a new law to saying if you're going to do this, here's what these things are called. And they're not allowed to be called councils, they're called boards, but they are effectively what your council does now. So they would not do the large infrastructure, that would be done regionally, and that sort of thing I was talking about, the economic development, but they would do all of the other local things that your council does. And there would be up to 9 people elected for that. So they would be doing what your councillors do now. So they would have a chair who would do the stuff that the mayor does now, they do what Ray does, that chair. Like, for instance, all the stuff when you put on your chain and you do your citizenship ceremony, that would be done here. Decisions about what your renewal plan for the Hut.
Making places.
I don't know whether you've heard about it, but Hut City are talking about doing that. Good on them. And revitalisation of the city here. All of that would be under their responsibility. There would be a whole bunch of activities that would be done locally as well. So we're saying let's get the best of both worlds, where local people have a say on their local placemaking, and they also contribute to the regional decision making on regional things. Why is this of interest to you? Because you're our future. You guys, when we're old and doddery, even more than we are now, will be the ones we rely on to make our economy work, to make our society work, and to make our community work. And it's really important that you understand these issues. Local government doesn't get much press. Generally you find about all the fights in Parliament, but actually local government is really important for people's lives, and we think you guys deserve to know what the options are and how they would work. So, do you want to say anything else? Because I thought maybe we'd just do some questions now.
Yeah, I don't really want to say anything else.
So
but I think just to reiterate, Fran's what Fran's just said. Really, one of the messages which has got muddied, or in fact hasn't been put out there, is the fact that the local decisions and in the option that we are promoting or putting forward, submitting to the Local Government Commission, is the two-tier option. So you have one overarching council, and underneath you have local area boards with a chairman and elected.
It's different to what Auckland
Different to
Auckland.
To Auckland. It's similar titles, that's exactly,
Yeah.
they have boards, but when that Auckland was set up, that's a really good question actually.
It is,
That
yeah.
was set up, the government said to Auckland, okay guys, we're going to do this to you. They set up something called a transition agency that did all of the work. The councils were kept right out of it, and they were told, here it is, this is what you're going to do. And they didn't get it right. So in Auckland now, when you talk to the mayor, Len Brown, or any of the people involved, they say, the boards we didn't get that right. And I think the government realised this too, because when they passed the law last year, they said, they made some new rules about what local boards do. And they said, these have to be decided, the Local Government Commission, remember I described that, will decide what the boards do. And that can't be changed. So it is different from Auckland in the sense that we think we can get a better model than Auckland. They're called the same thing, but in Auckland's case, they weren't given enough money to do what they're supposed to do, and you know we're kind of on top of that.
So it's empowering them. They will be empowered. They will have, empowered.
They will have a budget. They won't be able to collect rates. Do you know what rates are? Everybody who owns property pays rates to the council. All the rates will be collected in one go, but they will be given a budget out of those rates to do their work.
And does that happen in Auckland?
No. In Auckland they didn't do the budget properly. They actually have to go back and ask for things all the time, and it doesn't work.
Just
not
doesn't,
working.
yeah. So that's your question was really good. But so the local boards will deal with the local issues. Some of the issues will be huge, like the making places that Hutt City is doing now, and most of you will know that from the DAS, outside the DAS, that's the very beginning of it. They're looking to spread it further over towards the river, have the city more orientated towards the river, so it becomes a feature and we don't all have our backs to it. So it's really important that you understand that the local issues will remain local. I think that's really important, because the people who know the issues the best and know what is wanted are the locals. So I think that's the one big difference between Auckland and what our submission is proposing for. Well, it's not just us; it's also Porirua and Capital District Council are proposing for the Wellington region. So that is really important to kind of grasp that fact. Yeah.
I think the big thing for our perspective was hearing from Auckland the disempowerment that they felt in a smaller region.
Us too.
Yes.
And because of the way the Hutt is, I don't know if you live here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you know the Hutt's got a
Yeah, I
real
do.
unique identity.
Yep.
And it's something that should be preserved.
Absolutely.
And the fear was, looking at Auckland, that Wellington would get the focus like Auckland
Yeah.
City.
And I mean,
I agree.
you can
Quite understandable.
You can understand where that fear has generated from. But the whole idea is by keeping the local decisions local means that the identity stays.
But you know what? I know it seems like Auckland City's getting it, but I'll say in their defence, the Southern Initiative I mentioned,
Yeah.
they could never have done that.
Without-
Manukau City, the old Manukau City, South Auckland, had 273,000 people. That's bigger than Wellington City is now. And they actually could not do what the super city is able to do for them. And they're really excited. If you talk to the people there that have been involved, the community, they're getting finally what they need. And that's only because they've got more resource, because the bigger council's got more resource to bring to bear. So we've got areas here in the Hutt and the Porirua that really need the same thing. But again, nobody else can come in and help.
And help.
There's just no ability to do that under the current setup.
I think that the big thing that I'm specifically interested in is because the Hutt used to have infrastructure like Avalon,
Absolutely.
that drew in people for jobs all
Yep.
over the world,
Yep.
and that's fallen through.
Well, you've got possibilities now with this new technology valley people have been talking about on Gracefield, but nothing's happened. It's all been talked for the last few years, and I would love to see that as a big regional project, that we can do that sort of thing regionally. But again, can't do it now.
I think, you know, just what Fran's pointing out is that it's the power of a single voice. It's a united voice, I should say, probably, rather than a single voice. There is no doubt that you know, that the people will listen when it is just a single voice, not 9 separate voices, all pushing their own particular, literally head on against each other.
Somebody over here had a question.
Just talking about how Wellington, like, trying to balance out the focus. If there wasn't like a council, would it be based in Wellington, or
Where would the offices be?
Yeah.
Oh, there'd be offices everywhere, because
So
you just, I imagine you just, well, forget about seismic buildings, which most of our council buildings around the region have to go anyway, but there would be offices in every part of the region. So for a citizen coming in, you want to go and pay rates or get a dog licence or whatever, you just go into the same office that you go now. Absolutely, no question about that. There might well be also large parts of staff based elsewhere. So I'll just tell you what we do for the region. We've got a big office in Wellington which has got a lot of the admin staff. Out here in the Hutt Valley, we've got all the guys that do our water, because we do water, and so that's an office here. In Masterton, we've got another big office where a lot of our land, the guys and girls, generic word, people that work, you know, in the environmental stuff work up there. Upper Hutt, we've got a depot, and we've got another one out on the coast. So basically, we already, as a regional council, are everywhere in the region, and that's exactly what it would be. So I would imagine you'd still go to exactly the office of where the Upper Hutt, Lower Hutt, Poirua, etc. councils are now, and if you want anything, that's where you go. And that's where your local councillors would be based. They'd have offices there. Where your board members would be based, they would have offices there too.
I've got all my points written down.
Yeah,
go
on.
Any other things? So, in terms of the spatial plan, and sort of, I just had like a thing saying what will be the initiatives in places like Newtown and Cannons Creek and Taita and Nainai? What have we thought about how they can get some sort of?
Well, I certainly have, and that's why I mentioned the Southern Initiative, because that's exactly the sort of thing you'd want to do in those places you mentioned. And like Porirua, it's small, they've got 50,000 population, I think it's not very big, and they're reasonably, you know, a lot of their community are quite poor. They need that sort of help. It was exactly what happened with Manukau City. Interestingly, Manukau, nobody in Auckland really wanted to amalgamate either. But now 68.
I've got my glasses.
But they're not very big. But in Auckland, it was the same. People didn't want to amalgamate. Now the ones who have amalgamated, aside from the comments about boards, which they all agree with, are saying that the bigger council has been great for those sorts of areas because they've got resource that can be put in. So they've got, it's not just money, it's actually people with know-how and just sharing around all of the knowledge that all of the staff and the councils have got. And that's precisely what we do. I mean, that would be something we would use as a template, in my view, to say what is needed in different places. How would we approach it? So you do the social things, but you've also got other areas, as I mentioned, like Seaview, where you'd be saying, look, this is madness, it's our best area for industry development. Why don't we make it the hub of the regional industry development in the region? Porirua would want some too, and that's further away. But for Wellington, let's focus that on, you know, the kind of ICT area and, you know, those sorts of areas, rather than every single council trying to have a bit of industry, a bit of this, a bit of that. Let's say, where do we do things best in the region and do it there?
Well, the thing with Avalon is you have TV.
You've got that there.
Bring the TV tin down or something.
Would be great to be able to do that,
In the film industry, like, you know how John Key said it's a big city. Well, that's because there's no investment being put into the local industries, which are trying to build themselves. Working in the film industry, I know that the majority of TV production companies have left Auckland because all the broadcasters are there, and that's where everyone's making decisions. That's where everyone's schmoozing. It needs to be more balanced.
And these guys that have bought Avalon, who I know, they're friends of mine, really want to do that. And there's some production companies, as you know, left, like you've got a few of them, and Gibson's and Co, who have stayed here. We need to build on that and bring people back. And I don't think that one city or one council by itself is going to be able to do that. I think we have to have a concerted effort as a region to bring some of these people back.
We need a loud voice
And a unified
voice. To make us heard.
Swinging back a little bit to the start, I've got a few points, so I'm just going to say them all right off the bat. So amalgamation, like, I'm just curious as to a lot of things. Like, you see jobs. You talked about jobs. You talked about how people are moving to Auckland. Personally, I believe that they're not even moving to Auckland. They're going to Australia.
A lot of them are.
You're right.
It's because they got a higher wage. So unless amalgamation is really going to increase our wage rate, I don't think it's going to do much.
No, it won't increase your wages, but it will actually help us plan better to be able to keep jobs here and do the sort of things that Tom's just talked about. So we can have a united front to try and attract business back. Hang on, we'll finish first.
Also, you talked about demography, you talked about how people are moving into Wellington. Well, like, even if we amalgamated, I doubt people would stop moving into Wellington City. So Wellington City is still going to be the place where everyone will move into.
Can I answer that? Yes, you're right. Young people will always want to move there. But imagine if we redeveloped Seaview. Imagine if we got Gracefield going as a technology centre for the region, which is what the mayors out here would like to do. Imagine if we did that. Then you'd have people working out here, and people do like to live where they work. You'd have families moving into those areas because they want to be near their workplace. That is actually what happens. Bigger scale, of course, you see in the US where this happens, but you do it on a smaller scale here, and it actually attracts, it just revitalises communities.
I think in terms of youth, the thing that draws most youth into Wellington is the fact of having to pay to get into university, and when they don't earn anything. So it's a huge cost to go back and forth, and it's better to just let go of the shackles of home
and stay in Wellington. And besides which, you want to be where there's a huge amount of nightlife too. But with respect to you all as young adults, there's families as well. We want more families in the hut. We want families to live here, and if the kids will always go and might move around a bit to go to varsity and things like that, but if there's jobs here, you will get families living here, and you'll get some prosperity there, because that helps the local economy, helps the shops and things like
and
that.
people come back too. If it's vital and there are things for people to do. I mean, even our kids went away to university. Now, a lot of them would have wanted to come back, but there weren't necessarily the jobs for them to do. So we have a family of 4. 2 live in Australia, 1 lives in England, and 1 lives here. So
it's probably a pretty average.
And it's all to do with occupation.
Hang on, another one.
Well, you said, I'm pretty sure Hutt City is already organising Seaview. So
well, it's not. I'm afraid it's nothing. I mean, Seaview still has a high level of vacant land. And buildings. I don't think Hutt by itself is going to be able to manage that.
Why not? That's okay. Why not sort of just partner with Hutt? Like you said that you couldn't.
We'd like to, but others aren't. You're never going to get Wellington to say, hey, we're going to help Hutt, we're going to give up, what's it called? Something anyway, out here.
Actually, Fran, I just have a quick thing related to Seaview. Sorry, I thought I'd just jump into this again. I sent in a submission where they wanted to move all the logging from the front of the Wellington Harbour over to Seaview. Everyone thought it was a great idea. However, no one wanted to stump up the costs of the logistics of moving it along the Esplanade or reusing the train system.
Cross Valley Link, actually.
So that's where the Hutt City Council would have had to afford the cost. Now we're not interested in doing something that's going to cost us more locally for economic growth regionally.
That's
That's
exactly
the kind of
right.
thing that
Yep,
happens.
That's exactly what we're saying. There's a road that's a notional road called the Cross Valley
That's why
Link.
Seaview and Wingate areas
Yeah.
where you've got
That's
great
right.
That's
extent of
precisely
use
the
of
issue.
speed.
Absolutely.
Yep.
The
Spot
cost
on.
locally is too big.
Yep.
There are plans somewhere along the lines of Esplanade and Tony to do things. However, more logging, more infrastructure going across it.
That's exactly right.
I'm worried that, have you seen the Hunger Games? That will end up becoming District 12, where we produce employees for Wellington City,
Yep.
water which will end up getting metered for, even though they come from here.
Can I tell you about the road, the Seaview Road, because that's a really big favourite of mine, because I chair the Regional Transport Committee, and there's this road called the Cross
Is
Valley
Melling on
Link.
that topic too?
Sorry?
Is Melling also on that regional topic?
Well, is Melling on it?
Yeah, the Melling.
Oh, the Melling, the road, you mean
roundabout.
State Highway 2, the
Yeah,
roundabout.
the-
Sure is on the list, but just let's talk about the Cross Valley Link, because to make Seaview work properly, you've got to build a better road and get the traffic off the Esplanade. The Esplanade's fabulous beach, but man, you drive up there now and there's logging trucks and trucks all over to show you. I mean, it's just not user friendly. So let's get traffic off the Esplanade. How do you do that? Yeah, she put the Cross Valley Link in. That was, I think Hutt City took it out of their plan because they said they couldn't afford it. So we, the regional council, said, okay guys, we really want this road in, but we can't, it's your plan. So we talked to New Zealand Transport Agency and we said, please would you include this in your study you're doing of another part of the road over there. And they're doing that now. So we're getting that work done now, which was at our instigation, to get it back in the Hutt corridor plan, it's called. This is a transport plan. Sorry, it sounds a bit technical, but that's what it is. Now, we've pushed that as the region. That's precisely what I'm saying. And it would be great if we could help and we could say, well, it's not actually a local road, it's a regional road. But right now, it's a local road. So this is precisely the point, that to make Seaview work, you're going to have to change the roading, you have to do all this other stuff. It's never going to be affordable by one council. That's precisely what I'm saying.
Out of curiosity, just going to go here. Our council's debt isn't even that high, so wouldn't it, Wellington Council, how could Wellington afford it when its debt is so high?
Well, I just want to talk a bit about debt, if I may. Good question.
We haven't forgotten it.
I haven't forgotten the other one. We'll just
Two
do your last
hours,
one,
yeah.
and then we'll just finish this. So what you're hearing in your council publicity is how you have the lowest debt, or nearly the lowest. And Wellington City has the highest. Okay, that's what you hear. It's not, yours is not the lowest actually, it's about in the middle. Wellington City has the highest. So what they're taking is what's called gross debt, which is how much debt does the council owe? It owes $20, another council owes $10, another council owes $15, whatever it is. Okay, here's what it is. Wellington City, top. But what they haven't looked at is actually how, and the argument is that we will have to pay for that debt in our rates. Okay? If we amalgamate, your rates will go up because you'll be paying Wellington City's debt. So they've just conveniently forgotten a few things. First thing is that there's a whole lot more people in Wellington City than there are here, and it's spread around more people. But most importantly is that when councils are setting their rates, they don't just say, here's what we have to pay, we've got to pay out $10 and therefore we'll set the rates to give us $10. They say we have to pay $10, it's going to cost us to run this year, $10 to run, but by the way we've got income of $5 from somewhere else. So Wellington City has got investments that Hutt City hasn't got. So Wellington City owns a third of this year of the airport. It gets $9 million a year from the airport in dividend. It owns property in the central city where it gets rent from them. So first of all, they say, how much income do we have from other people other than the ratepayers? Take that off, and then you say, so how much do we have to run the city and pay off our debt? Maybe we only need $5, and that's called your net debt. And when you look at the net figures, and I'm happy to leave this with you, it changes completely. Who's the highest? Kapiti Coast, followed by Masterton, Porirua, Carterton, Upper Hutt, Wellington City, Greater Wellington and South Wairarapa right down the bottom. Changes completely. And that is actually what you should be looking at, not gross debt.
Sorry?
It's net, not gross.
Yeah,
That's
right.
Net debt is the amount you actually have to pay off,
Yeah.
but against taking into account your income.
Think about like gross GDP and net GDP. So you always
And that's how councils work.
Yeah.
So Wellington City has a whole lot of other income that Hutt City doesn't have.
Well, you can also talk about it as assets.
Yeah,
Wellington
assets.
City, you
But
think
it's
about
got
it.
more than assets. It's
Yeah,
got
well, it's
non-earning
more
and
than-
earning assets.
Yes, so there are non-earning and earning assets, but if you kind of think about it as assets,
I'm happy to leave this with you because
then
that's
you can
really
see
important.
what Wellington City has as opposed to
What's been quoted here is the top line, and you really need to look at the bottom line. But there's another thing too, and that's all of this would be spread amongst the whole region. Question.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Do you want to have
Have
your
a quick one
time?
before you leave?
Thank you.
Gotta go. Okay. Thanks for coming. So that would be spread amongst the whole region too. The other thing is, I do note that Hutt's just announced they wanted to do this big development in Wainui, which I think was about, with roads and things, about 50 million, but they haven't changed their future projected debt line for that. So there's going to be more debt in the future, but they're not putting it in their books yet. So
It's very roughly drawn against the moment of
Oh, is it more than roughly drawn on things?
the whole winery development thing.
I don't know,
with,
but anyway.
building on the hills.
So I'll leave that with you, Tom. You know, what somebody once said, there's lies, damned lies, and statistics. Great quote that. And you know, we're having one half of the cases heard here, the debt especially. And councils have what they call asset cycles. So every 30 years or 50 years or something, you have to renew your sewage pipes and whatever it is, 100 years in some cases. Hutt at the moment doesn't have much renewal due, but it will have soon. So you'll get to a stage in the Hutt where you need to renew your pipes and your other infrastructure. And right now, other people have been doing this. Wellington City were in first probably with renewals. They've done a lot of these up front. So it's just a cyclical thing. So in the long term, it all just washes out.
In regards to like the Greater Wellington Regional Council, if it's amalgamated, will that just cease to exist?
Yes, all the councils will cease to exist as they are now, and they will be reformatted. There will be a new unitary regional council, one council, and then the local boards to replace the councils. Yeah. Now,
So a young lady just here.
Yeah.
There would be 9 it would still be the same number of boards as there would be councils.
No, there'd be more actually. We're suggesting that Wellington City would be broken up into 3.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be one big one, it would be
Because
3,
it's so big.
because it's too big. So you'd have a south-east one like that Newtown, Kilburnie area, then you'd have a central one, and then you'd have a northwest one, which would be Johnsonville, Kandara, Karori.
Down on population.
So there'd be more than there are now, just to try and keep the numbers a bit more even.
Just a couple of things. When you talk about like the options 3, you guys were talking about before with the whole 2-tier system.
Yeah, which is not what they're saying here as option 3 in their ad.
Yeah. But to me, at least, that sounds a lot like it is now, except they've changed the names around, and the Greater Wellington region is a lot more empowered to do stuff over the whole. Would you agree with that? Or?
No, it is quite different, because right now, one of the issues, as I tried to explain, is that we can't, other councils, you can't do cross-boundary things. So the beauty of having the one unit, if you want, over the region, is that you will be able to go in and do the things that we can't do now as a Great Wellington Regional Council. We can't do those things now.
But if they were empowered to do that kind of thing and the names were changed, isn't that pretty much what option 3 is?
Well, yeah, but they're not empowered to do it. I mean, you can't do it under the law. So basically, you could say it's similar to what we've got now. It's the most similar to what we've got now, but it's not identical by any means. It's more powerful because it actually enables interventions to help communities that maybe can't help themselves.
Also, when you were talking earlier about how we have like a united voice under the, not Super City, I guess it has that name, but
Unfortunate name, because that's the Auckland name. We'd rather not call it that.
isn't the whole point of each area having a different voice though, because each area needs different things? So
Yeah, they certainly
to
do in the
unite
areas.
that voice wouldn't ever please everyone. So some would be silenced and some would be pleased.
No, I think what we're talking about is a united voice with central government, which is a bit different. Like, we're really competing against Auckland, Christchurch, Sydney, Singapore, you know, whatever, go as far as you want. But within New Zealand, we're actually competing in terms of central government now. Wellington, all the Wellington councils are competing against each other, whereas we're saying we're actually pretty cohesive region now. We have all this movement of people, not only the, whatever it is, tens of thousands that go into Wellington City each day, but people come out here to work too from Wellington City. So we're kind of one economic unit, but we can't function as one economic unit. So when we're talking to the government, we want to be able to say, look, government, you're putting too much attention into Auckland. We can't really complain about Christchurch right now, can we?
Can't the Greater Wellington region say that for us though, speaking as a region?
Because then a mayor or somebody will say, Fran Wilde, you can't speak for us.
Yeah.
But if every council individually thinks that, why can't they say that?
Well, they're not. That's the whole problem. You're absolutely right. We started with that at the beginning, and that my view is it would have been great. Frankly, life would be much easier if we could have just done that. And we couldn't even get agreement on the shared services, and that was the problem that triggered all this off, actually. You're right, absolutely right. But two things mitigate against that. One is the law, where councils are absolutely obliged to focus on their own areas. So getting a regional agreement on maybe something's best to be put there, not there, or maybe something's, you know, Wellington we focus on film or ICT and, you know, services. Maybe Hutt we focus on other things, maybe Porirua and other, whatever. I mean, there'll be lots of different. I've only just used examples that may be wrong, but they're just, you know, some examples. So we're saying it doesn't work. And the other thing is politics. I mean, they mitigate against it.
Yeah. Okay. Another thing is, with all the projects you've been talking about to us and stuff, where's all the money for this coming from?
Where it comes from now. It won't be more money. It'll be. It'll be in one pool. And we can say where's the best use of that.
But then what money is the boards getting? Is it coming out of
same pool? Yeah, same stuff that the councils do now.
So the boards will put up an annual plan for what they...
And they will have it budgeted. They will get the budget.
Yeah, they will get, so then it all works out.
So it's coming out of like local projects and...
It will come out of rates.
Just the rates.
Just the rates. So the rates
will... rates go up or...?
No.
No.
Why should it?
No.
In Auckland, let's talk about rates actually, because there's been a lot of... Can I just say this one thing? There's been a lot of discussion about rates. People have said, Auckland, all the rates went up. Well, they actually didn't all go up.
It did go up because Mayor Brown just said that for the rates for the next 5 years, he has said it on TV and in the papers, that the next 5 years the rates will go up.
Will you let me finish? Can I finish, please? May I finish? Thanks. What happened was they put all the cities together and they said, okay, let's look at all of the annual plans of all of the projections, long-term plans of the councils in Auckland, as they were, say, for the next 10 years, because everyone goes out that far. How much would the rates rises have been? I can't remember. I think it was something like, aggregated together, they were something like 10 or something %. And the new Auckland City, the rates rises were less than that. So rates never go down. I absolutely promise you that rates will never go down. They will always go up. But in Auckland what happened, and it will happen here too, is that some people had a higher rise than others. Some people actually had a rates reduction. You never hear about them on the radio.
Can you explain why? The land value as opposed to...
There were different forms of rating. Some of them were rated on land value. I won't go into the details. Some on capital value. And they changed everyone to capital value. And that meant that a lot of people rates went down and a lot of people went up. And frankly, it was an average, which means half above, half below. So there were some people who had big rates rises when they did this adjustment to the different rating system. But other people paid less rates. Overall, if you talk about the rates take, exactly what we've been told here by a friend, of course rates go up, but not as much as they were planned to go up by the individual councils prior to amalgamation. So prior to amalgamation, let's say for argument's sake, I can't remember what the number was, there was going to be an overall 10% increase. it was something only like 4%. So they've been able to hold the rates increases. But what you've read about in the paper wasn't that at all. It was the fact that when some people went to a different rating system, their rates went up hugely. But other people's rates went down.
In the Hutt Valley is on capital rating. That they changed from land-based rating to capital-based rating. Oh, God, I don't know how many years
Most
ago.
of our region is.
Yeah.
Couple like Kapiti and some of Wairarapa.
Yeah. So if this happened, everybody would go to the same.
But if you're saying, will rates rise because of the amalgamation, much more than they would have anyway, the answer is no. The rates won't rise. It'll be the same amount of income going to the councils.
I have to know. So,
On good meeting.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very
Coming
much.
in.
Cheers.
Nice to meet you. Yeah.
How much more?
Sorry, just one more
No,
thing.
yeah, we've got some people here, I think. Sorry, can we try over here?
No, this gentleman down here at the back.
She can go.
Oh, all right. Well,
No,
someone else. Otherwise,
Nancy, we went.
Go on, Nancy, go.
Just a quick question. I was just wondering, if we're going to amalgamate, then if all the councils are going to be against each other, right, because they've got different views and everything, then how are we going to do the final decision? It's going to be a vote, like a majority of a vote, or is it?
What will happen is the local government commission will make a decision. Whatever it is, that's going to be it, but there will be a referendum on that.
Okay.
So you can vote. The vote will be yes or no on what the local government commission suggests. So if you don't like it, you vote against it, and then it doesn't happen.
So the referendum is the actual final decision?
Yeah.
Or will it,
Absolutely.
if you
final
just
decision.
recently, Tasman and Nelson had a
Referendum.
They had a referendum.
Yeah. So that is absolutely the last say. Yeah. Absolutely dead. After that, it's dead duck if it doesn't go ahead. Yeah. Now, did you have another question?
Have you had your question?
Got a few, but I'll make it really, really small.
Okay.
Currently, does Wellington have any land for infrastructure?
What sort of infrastructure? What do you mean?
Anything in terms of development or whatever?
In terms of, sorry?
Development. You know,
Lincolnshire
for them to...
Oh, like Lincolnshire Farms?
Lincolnshire Farms.
Like for, you mean a development of,
Yes,
a
well,
greenfields development or a brownfields development for...
any kind of development area.
Well, they've got plenty of housing land. We're not short of that anywhere in the region, actually.
Okay.
They're wanting to develop out of Lincolnshire Farms behind Granada as a kind of a light industrial area, and that's where I'm saying I think for the region it's better to develop where we already have the infrastructure.
And that's
So
you.
you don't have to build it again.
And that's you.
Yes, Seaview
And
would
that's
be
you.
my first pick.
Yeah.
And then this land at Porirua as well, if you want to
Yeah,
see
but Seaview is more ideal.
Yeah, well, the
in
thing
terms
with
of investment.
Seaview too, having lived here all my life, Seaview was a heck of a lot more vibrant a few years ago, many years ago, than it is now. So, but that land is still there, and when you just have to think about its location regionally
Yeah, Seaview has generated...
as to other areas.
Well, after the tobacco factory in Seaview,
Yeah.
it has definitely grown up, and the development will always tend to grow over the years because
Yeah.
there were so many buildings that are there now
Yeah.
when there 5 years ago.
Oh,
Seaview-
absolutely.
And that's one of the reasons why Wellington or Greater Regional Council wants to invest into Seaview, because that's where most of the things are going to go anyway.
Well, we won't be doing the direct investment. This will be private sector.
That's
Private
fine,
sector
but
does
private
this.
sector doesn't need to approach a super city or one council.
No.
They can individually come to whichever area they want, and they can develop
Yeah,
whichever area they need.
And
to.
they're all being courted by all the different
everybody.
councils.
That's exactly what we're saying. All the councils
Why don't we
are
have them
competing.
courted by one entity that
What,
was...
like, where was this whole merger thingy, amalgamation 5 years ago? People weren't talking about that because all the other cities were making money at that time. They were getting
I
all
think
the
it was a little more than 5 years ago,
Okay,
with respect.
that's fine. And
We've had a few issues for 5
so
years.
currently, Seaview is going to grow, and everybody wants a share of it, which is fine. You talked about that net debt,
Yeah.
Wellington versus Lower Hutt. What's the actual figure?
What do you want to know? Net
How
or gross?
much is Lower Hutt more than...
Okay, net debt. Wellington and Hutt are pretty similar there.
How much is the debt?
25912601.
And that's only a 10 million debt. And that survey was done by John Shewan.
No, this has nothing to do with John Shewan. These
You
are
sure? That's the figure he used.
yes, because these are the numbers. He
But
used
he calculated those
he
numbers,
didn't
right?
do the numbers.
So you
himself.
are versing that $10 million offset.
These are actually off the council's reports
Yeah,
and
John
plans.
Shewan did the report.
I think John used our numbers actually.
Okay, so it's only $10 million difference.
But the point of this
$10 million
is
is the difference.
Upper Hutt is 3.8. People are all using
Are we
these
talking
numbers.
Lower Hutt and Wellington?
We're talking Lower Hutt and Wellington. They're quite the same there, but
Which
actually,
is only $10 million.
yeah. But actually, if you look at the gross debt, Hutt's this is the one your politicians are using. Hutt 69, Wellington 374, which is huge difference, and we're saying that's actually an incorrect
And
number.
so Wellington has a wider range of investments.
That's right. You
exactly
know this.
right.
You know this. Wellington has a big range of investments,
And Wellington,
including the airport.
and Wellington incorporates the Greater Wellington Regional Council.
No, they don't
Doesn't?
incorporate us. No.
We
Doesn't
nothing,
it? No, we're nothing to do with
nothing
this.
to do with Wellington City Council.
Greater Wellington's in
Okay.
here too. Under the gross debt, we're 182, and when it comes to net debt, we're 555.
A final question.
So it's quite a big difference there.
Okay, I
Okay.
understand that. A final question. When, for example, because change is necessary, regardless of what you say, amalgamation
I agree
can
with
work,
you.
big or small, but
Sorry?
amalgamation can work, but there's a limit to it, that how much you can accommodate. If you look at the euro, you know, same
you're
money
not
is actually,
suggesting being, well, how many
You know?
million, 300 million, I don't know.
you know.
We've got
and-
500,000 people in Wellington.
So,
I think it's a bit different from Europe, isn't it?
Yeah, it is different, but the thing is, it's how big you can handle.
Yeah, we've
You know,
well,
like Upper Hutt, Lower Hutt, Pitoni merging with Lower Hutt to form Hutt City,
Yep.
they could manage it. Whether Wellington or Greater Regional Council can handle all.
it's not
No,
Greater
no,
Wellington. We'll be
it's
abolished.
Every
We'll
It
be
will
out
be
of job.
abolished, but yeah, it will be that.
So-
But the thing is, when elected, the CEO has the power to change the structure.
No,
You sure?
absolutely
That's
sure.
what,
I
the
can show.
submission to the commission says something else.
Well, look, I'm sorry, but I haven't got the act with me. But
Well,
if you give me your,
I have read it.
well,
I have read it, and it says that the CEO has the power
no,
to
I'm
change.
sorry, sir. I have
the
to
structure.
tell you, you're actually wrong.
So you
The
tell me.
local government commission will can make any decision it wants to, and if the council wants to change something, say for a ward,
Yep.
they have to go back to the local government. They cannot unilaterally do that. That is absolutely in the law.
But
And
that's-
I haven't got the
But that's at the
clause with
board
me tonight, but I
level.
can tell you.
That's just at the board level, right?
Well,
that's
I
at
don't
the
understand
community
what you're saying.
That's fine.
What other? What's the CEO won't be able to change a structure that's set by the local government commission. I don't understand what you're saying. The boundaries will be set, the wards will be set, the numbers will be set. All that will be set under the finding of the local government commission, and that will be it. Full stop. Can't be changed unilaterally by either the CEO, much less the CEO, or the council. That is correct. I mean, you say it's not, but I have to tell you it is. And we've looked at this closely, and this is exactly what the law
So
says.
it won't change in terms of as the time will go on, like the number of people are going to be on the boards. Because every time we meet, there's a different reason for this amalgamation. Because I did ask you guys when we first met, is it due to an economic reason? And now it's becoming quite apparent that it is.
Well, we've always said it was social, economic, everything. Demographics.
I asked clearly to all three of you at that time.
This was at the public meeting.
Yes.
Everything I've said tonight was in this presentation, which is exactly the one I printed it off tonight before I came, that we gave at the public meeting. Every single fact I've given you tonight was in here. Everything.
Just like status quo,
What do you mean, just like status quo?
it wasn't added. in the previous meetings.
But the status quo has always been there.
Status
No, it
quo.
wasn't there. It
The
wasn't
local,
there.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The status quo is actually what the. Sorry about this argument, everyone's a bit technical.
No, that's fine.
But the local government commission is obliged. Oh, here's Nick. Is obliged to actually look at the status quo as one of the as the alternative to everything. By the way, guys, this young man is the mayor of Porirua. His name is Nick Leggett.
And we have two.
And we have two councillors here.
Anna is one and Bronwyn. Sorry,
Bronwyn.
Yeah.
And I told them I was coming out to meet some young people, and they said, "Can we come too?" So here they are, and they've been at a council meeting tonight. So if you don't watch out, you could end up as a mayor. I think at this stage I should go and leave you guys talk, because you can talk.
I've just sort of go, but can I put in my last 2 cents about what are you going to make more efficient, and what like we're talking about the wider initiatives for other things, like we're talking about Seaview. So what other initiatives are there, and how are you going to make Wellington more efficient?
Okay, that was just an example, the Seaview example, and I used it because it's the local one. There'll be lots of others. Nick will have some, Upper Hutt will have some, everybody will have their own initiatives that they want to do. Yeah, so efficiency, oh gosh, how long have we got?
You're in play now, but just to
Simple decision making at that high level will make that much more efficient than it is now. The local communities will still get on and do their own thing, exactly like they do now.
Will administration be decentralised?
It'll be, it's actually, the answer to that is both, strangely. There'll be one administration over the whole place, but there will be local people doing the local jobs. So the person that's the dog catcher or whatever, use that as an example, will still be the same person doing the same thing. The librarians will be there, everybody will still be doing their own jobs. Yeah.
Got a question down that way about community boards. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just anxious about time. Sorry, guys. Maybe we could take maybe just 1 or 2 more questions and then call it a night.
I've got something I'd just like to add in.
Have you got a question about community boards? So maybe you can ask someone else.
Just because I know that community committees are the ways that Hudson Council gets through thorough consultation with the rest of the communities. Most of the way, it's the main way that we get to consult with young people.
Yep.
And I feel that's the most relevant part of the council that might be affected by the amalgamation. I just wanted to know if community committees will still be upheld, or whether that is something that will be left to the local boards.
It will be entirely up to the board. If they want to have them like they do now, they can. They can have local committees if they want to.
Is there anything that says that they have to keep them or don't have to keep them?
No, neither way. It's silent on it. They can have them if they want to. So I would suggest that here people would want them, and other places they may not. They have them in the community boards in Kapiti, very much so. Very reliant on them. They have a couple of Wellington. You don't have any.
We don't. We're a non-community board council by choice. We don't feel that they're the best fit for our city. But what we do run is a program called Village Planning, which sounds a bit like your ward. Is it ward committees? Is that what they're called? Community. Community committees. Yeah. So and we've they're far more sort of suburb centric. So it's not, you know, a collection of suburbs that happen to be in a ward that may not have anything in common. It's actually right down to communities of interest, and they are handed money by the council, and they have to come up with a plan for their community and a vision as to what their community will look like in the future, and on practical projects between now and the future. And the council will fund those to a certain degree. We've seen some communities that have actually got private partners and sponsorship donations from members of their community, and using voluntary community labour as well. So it's actually the community physically creating things, and shaping what they look like and defining themselves. And that's been we've won international recognition for that, and national recognition. And that's our brand of community democracy and community decision making. And it might be different in different parts of the region. But the whole point about regionalisation is that you should be able to define and learn, more importantly, from other parts of the region as to what you want your community shaping to look like. and there might be things the hut can teach us, there might be things we can teach the hut, and carpet, and all those sort of places, but we don't actually have to lose local identity and local voice as long as decisions are devolved to local boards and the resources are kept in place to be able to shape, our neighbourhoods.
And it's important that the local community can make the decision about how they do that. So I don't think it should be prescribed from on top by the government or anything. If the hut wants to do that, that's what they should be able to do.
Fran, can I ask a really burning question? I guess it's really relevant here and now. Youth Infusion, funded by our City Council.
Yep.
And this youth being funded.
Yep.
Is a primary benefactor is the City Council as well.
That's good.
There are other cities that don't fund youth venues or youth services as such, and councils as such. Is there a protection in place for an amalgamation which would, see us continue going forward? Do you think?
I would see that these sort of community facilities that decision making would be devolved to a local board. So to me, that's your protection. I mean, you elect people to a local board. The culture of your community is preserved in that local board, and I see those as really as business as usual in the sense that
the board carries that.
Exactly. And the main thing is, so if the hut local board says we value providing a youth facility, and that's something we want a budget for, then they get the money from the council to carry out that service. Yeah.
And that's exactly what we were saying before, local, states, local. But I tell you what, as a local person, I knew about St. Edward, but I didn't know exactly what you did here. So, promote yourselves. It's great.
You're not the target market.
I know I'm not the target market.
Too old.
I know I'm not the target market, but for all of that,
You've got another question?
I've got questions, a couple of quick questions. So with the local boards, they would obviously get funding, right? They would obviously get funding from the big umbrella.
Yep.
So, at the moment, the local boards are starting to look a little bit like the council boards.
They are very similar. That's
So
what I said at the
will
beginning.
they get the exact same amount, will they get similar funding with Hutt City? I'm talking about Hutt City in particular.
No, because things like the
expensive stuff to the
will
unitary
be
council.
done
So,
regularly.
in essence, we'd be getting a little bit less funding.
But you'd be doing less work too. So infrastructure, for example, the water, the sewage and everything would be run regionally.
Yeah.
And then the councils would do the local community stuff that they do and that they have to do because nobody else can do it.
Does that mean there'd be a lot less jobs per regional area for the?
No, because you still need the same people to run the water and the sewage. They might just be employed by somebody different. They'll be reporting to somebody maybe regionally.
Okay.
They're still the same people.
What about in say the Hutt City office is just here? If it was to become a local board, would a lot of those people not be employed?
Some may not be. Certainly the senior, like the politicians and the senior managers, all of us.
The expensive people.
We're all gone. And then you start again with those. So there'd be another bunch there in their place. But instead of having 9 CEOs in the region, you'd have 1 CEO. So that saves a bit of money.
But you'll still get the same amount of dog control people, and you'll still get the same amount.
The people that are managing the entire thing, they'll be getting paid more, wouldn't they? Because they're managing the entire thing.
But the salaries of 9 CEOs would be astronomical, and frankly, you're never going to get a person in New Zealand paid that much.
You're comparing something.
A good job, I think we'd all have.
Yeah, but you're comparing it with a few. You'd have more than just one person inside the umbrella, the top umbrella. So
you have a management structure like you have now in every council. So you'd have a CEO, then you'd have general managers doing this, that and the other thing. And instead of having that 9 times, you'd have it once. And then you'd have the staff would report in there. And that actually does save money, but I've never promoted this as a money-saving thing. It does actually save some money, but it's not the purpose of this at all. Purpose of it is to be more effective and to get better local governance and better regional.
My last question would be, how would youth councils be involved in this? Would they stream from local boards? How would youth councils work?
I would think so.
Yep.
That would be the obvious thing.
But I would see, interestingly, and someone you might have to comment on this, I would see youth councils absolutely staying in communities of interest. But I think there's a better chance for a regional sort of a forum because you'll have one council with a region that could actually pull the collective youth voice for the region. And I think that's exciting. So
it would be based, if it was based in Wellington.
Well, it wouldn't be based. It wouldn't be based anywhere. It's not geographically.
Over being based, you guys would be here, Pururu would be there.
How would you connect?
You'd have a virtual council.
Well, how do you? I'll put the question back to you. How do you connect now?
And meetings.
No, I mean, you're part of a region. You are ratepayers and citizens of a region and of a city. Your focus at the moment is entirely on the neighbourhoods you live as city residents, but not regionally. So 3-4 years ago, and Leoli can tell you about this as well, we used to have regional hui for youth councils. You've lost, I would say, my opinion is that connectivity throughout the region has been lost. So this is an opportunity to have a youth voice both at a regional level through the umbrella head council, if you will, as well as having your local involvement through your local board. So you're actually getting 2 bites of the cherry. So instead of just being about youth centres and dance parties, you'll have a young people's voice into policy and making decisions that are good for you now as young people and good for you 30 years from now when you're buying houses and having families of your own.
Yeah, but say you have all the youth councils coming together as one sort of thing. You can't. You have to meet somewhere. You can't just connect all over stuff.
We meet out at Upper Hutt with the mayoral forum. The mayoral forum meets at Upper Hutt.
Lose the structure. It's about what that can achieve. It's about outcomes. It's not about you might choose to meet in a different place every time. It's what you do. It's the decisions that you have influence on and the discussions you have that can actually shape the future of the region. And I say this because I know a lot of kids from Purirua that come over the hill to the Hutt Valley to school every day, and you guys will know some of them as well from the different communities, and go into town, go up the coast. We are linked, and young people are linked in this region better often than older people. And we have to have mutual influence and we have mutual interest in getting good outcomes for jobs, for education, for culture, for sports and rec that currently isn't tapped into. So if we have one decision-making body and a regional youth council that's made up of all the different regional youth councils that can feed into that and have influence to the politicians and the management, you're in a much stronger position, in my view, potentially, if you choose to take it.
Can I say something very quickly? Because I'm one of those people, I live in Tawa half the time and I come up to the Hutt Valley. But a lot of what you say about adding to the political voice, we already feel like we can do that now with our local government because it's right here, it's a lot more accessible. The power that they'll have will be going to a higher umbrella government and that will be harder to access.
So what are the things that you influence at the moment?
We talk about submissions to policies. We often get consulted when they come and talk to us.
So they talk about what do you actually influence, not how you consult or how you talk, but what are the things that you actually have influence on?
There were several projects that what's the young people KAD, is it?
KAD.
Yeah, the children and young.
Oh no, CYPP.
Yeah, CYPP. Sorry, wrong one. But yeah, we talk about that. We get to have influence on that, give feedback and stuff on that. But
there's nothing to stop you.
Why would that not happen?
I think you've got an enhanced chance.
Even though you say that youth are a lot more mobile and stuff than adults, you still see newspapers and that there was a story in the newspaper probably 4 or 5 months ago now. Kids that live in Porirua had never been to Wellington.
Yep.
It can be easy for some of us to get around, but there's kids in Naina and stuff in the lower deprivation areas that can sometimes struggle just to get to this.
But wouldn't you want to work with the other kids in that area to help those kids?
Oh, I'd love to.
Don't you want to actually improve their lot for the future?
Yes, definitely.
Grow the regional economy?
But if they can't get how are they going to get to somewhere else?
You don't have to all come to the meetings. You guys are the leaders, and you should be working together to help all the other kids who maybe aren't so well off and can't do these things and maybe aren't as articulate and able to do the things you can do. So you would still have the chance to influence your local board, but you'd have a wider chance to network and to influence the whole region, which I've God, I mean,
It's
I
a
have to
huge
say, if I was
opportunity.
your age, I'd say, grab this opportunity.
Yeah. Be
It's
powerful,
bloody good.
be
It's
There's a
powerful.
young lady here again.
Yes.
So has there actually been anything written down about this?
About which?
Potential youth amalgamation, I suppose?
No, we haven't written anything about that.
Nothing on that at all.
If you want to give us something, that'd be great. I mean, we think you guys have to promote this.
You guys are actually in the
You're
power
in the
seat. of
seat.
this. You know, like it's unwritten. So right.
Yeah.
I'm like, I think when you guys said that, don't we want to help those kids? It's not that we don't want to meet up and stuff, like we do. I reckon it's quite exciting. Like I have a lot of friends in P-Town, and the things that the mayor, like you guys run in P-Town, are really good for youth. Like I realise that you guys do a lot with like different people and different cultures, and like I think it depends on what environment people are in. Like the hut is probably different from Corridor, so your problems won't be the same. So like if we all come together as one voice, all our problems there might be some similar stuff, but then there wouldn't be. So like decision
So you deal with your local
things locally,
Yeah,
regional.
But can I tell you, Hutt City and Purira have got something in common. Both cities have got a lot of young people, and I'm sorry, but the broad issues are common: education and training, vocational pathways, future jobs, state of the regional economy. 15% of the workers in Purira drive over the hill and come and work in Hutt City every day. We have an interest in how well your local economy here performs. We think that the resources of the region, and I think Fran's already talked about it in terms of Gracefield, should go towards opening up further growth and development opportunities. We had Technology Hut come and talk to us the other day. We want the hut to do well, and at the moment it's like everybody's walking around with blinkers on, and that's the frustration I have, having been to the mayoral forum for almost 3 years, and we have the same conversation and nothing ever happens because everybody's too scared to give up because they think they're giving away something. And the point is, we know that local action is the strongest, and it's the thing that most people feel connected to. What we're saying to you is, your ability to do what you do now should be completely unchanged, enhanced potentially if we're amalgamated. But you also have the added potential value of being part of a regional voice that can actually seriously influence government policy on issues relating to young people. Because I can tell you this, a youth council for the region, speaking on behalf of the whole of the Wellington region, speaking to government, is going to have a hell of a lot more clout.
We're really powerful.
You've got it, one region. Yeah. That's
We're probably 15% of the country as a region. Much stronger voice, we can have more influence.
We're actually the second biggest population centre after Auckland, and everybody calls Christchurch the second biggest because when they talk about Wellington, they only talk about Wellington City, and it's not right.
And just like, can I also say that, like, I grew up in the hut. I'll say hut. And for me, when I still have, because a lot of my family and my friends still live in the hut. So for me, when I think of local governance in the hut, I actually feel quite sad because what I see in local governance for the hut is not the community I grew up with, and I think that your community your representatives should actually represent what your community looks like. And when I see who represents the hut, that's not my community that I grew up with. Whereas,
except for
what do you say?
What do you mean by that?
well, when I compare Kororoa to the hut town, just look at a photo. That's what I say.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that. I mean, it's not just that we need to have all young people, or we need to have. It actually needs to be made up of what your community is.
I think she's saying some of you guys should run for council and should run for local government. Just like these guys did in their communities.
It's not, and it's not. I mean,
I was the youngest councillor on the Tony Council by about, I don't know, 40 years. When I was the councillor, I was about next age.
And and I think that what you guys have here is amazing. It's fantastic, but I also think that don't let it be enough. don't be complacent about that this is your lot, and that politics. I hate, because I don't like calling local politics because to me it's actually just people that live in, that care about your own city kind of having a say. So to me it's not politics, but it is. I think that you should feel that you have a right around that table to actually sit at the table, not just to be invited or given.
You shouldn't have to make submissions. One of you should be there.
And I know,
one of you, two of you, three of you.
And
we do have standing orders on City Council.
Nah, you need to be an elected.
You need to be able to vote.
So you should run.
Control the money.
You don't have enough money, eh?
No, I want to tell you a story. I got into Parliament when I was aged 31. I had no money. I was a single mother. I had 3 kids and I had not one bean to my name. And people helped me with my campaign. They helped me. I had no money at all and I got into Parliament. Now, if I can get into Parliament, you can get onto a council. If you all group around, say, here's 2 or 3 people we're going to help, and you will help them. And people will help you.
And, you know, Mayor Wallace is really supportive of young people.
Yep.
I mean, so hit him up. He's someone that you want to be.
Get him to sponsor a candidate.
Yeah. You are young people, you know how the internet works. Use things like the Give a Little platform. Get all of your mates to put in 5, 10, 20 bucks, and then you've got enough. I mean, I was a full-time student without a job. I ran a campaign. I got elected as a teenager. It's not impossible. Obviously, helpful that
You were a teenager?
our council has had teenagers before.
I'm not a teenager. Yes. Poor old
Another one?
We need to wrap it up.
Yeah.
We need to wrap it up?
Yeah.
Never mind.
Oh well. Thank you very much for coming. I'm sure we've all learned a lot from it and it was very well spoken. It's been really great to hear both sides of the argument and, you know, open our horizons of thought and stuff about this issue. And I'm sure many people have been further educated on it so that we can make the best informed decision, and this decision is going to be best for us in the future and now. So thank you very much for coming and giving up your time. It's much appreciated.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. We're really grateful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's terrific. The opportunity. Really good.
Great spot you got here too, by the way.
Yeah.
Sorry? On behalf of the secret level, thank you for coming out as well.
Thank you. Thanks for having us here.
It's great to be here.
Sorry about that.
No, that's all right. That's where you can go.
Oh.
We've lost